So Nick, what have you watched this week?
I have watched Catfish, the 2010 documentary about catfishing.
Yeah, and I think this coined the phrase as well,
Yeah, well, because there's a bit in the end credits where
where they
the
talk
guy
about
talks about
yeah
catfish,
about
and the thing
catfish.
is, the way he uses it doesn't specifically mean how we use it now. So I think this
No,
must have been the original of it,
oh
and then
yeah,
people
it
used it from
must be
there.
coined by this. I can't think of it being coined anywhere else,
Yeah,
or at least it'd be a massive coincidence if it was.
yeah. No, I think this is I think it evolved from this film.
Yeah. So, what did you think of it?
Um, I thought it was pretty good. Yeah. I
It's
think
a bit of a slow burn, isn't it?
A little bit. I do like because there's this tension of and I don't know if this would have worked back in the day when this was still a new term, but since I knew from the title roughly where it was going, it was
Yeah.
interesting watching. Going, okay, where's this going to go? When's the penny going to drop? When's something going to happen?
Yeah.
And getting up to that's quite cool. I do think I like it's it is kind of like I was saying in previous episodes about those documentaries where it starts off being about one thing and then organically events unfold, it becomes
Yeah.
something
Yeah. Yeah.
else.
Yeah.
So I do like that aspect of it.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
but
So I thought it's really sad. Firstly,
yeah, I will say
because
there's one shot at the end that nearly made me cry because it's just such a really poetic sort of shot and the
yeah.
meaning behind it.
So what do you think of its construction then? Because obviously they start off making it about something else, and then it evolves into this thing, and it's all like handheld. It's quite retro looking, isn't it? Like,
Yeah, well, it's very obviously it was made in 2010 on handheld equipment, and you can really tell.
yeah, yeah, like really tell.
But there's something. Well, so there is an angle of it though, like the sort of the low tech of it gives this air of authenticity, doesn't it?
I think it does. Yeah,
But I do think I would say there's an element of construction to it. Like there's sort of I don't think they faked it,
yeah.
but there is capacity that it could all be actors. Like it's not out
So
of the realm of
what
possibility.
I thought when I saw it was, I don't think any of it's fake, but I definitely think they construct it in a certain way, as in you know, they're like, we're gonna do this because we want this specific reaction, and then they go in
Yeah.
that and they get that specific reaction. They're like, okay, great, that fits in our story nicely here.
Yeah, I think the fact that they were filming it from the beginning and did things that I don't think they would have done. Like I think they egged Nev on to do things that he wouldn't have done normally just because
Yeah.
they were filming it, like going to visit them, continuing to message Thingy
The
and
girl,
yeah, and there's this bit which they leave in, which I think is really interesting that they left it in, where Nev's trying to tell them all to just leave me alone. I don't want to, you're directing me around all the time. This is my life.
Yeah.
You can just walk away. But I'm trying to just live my life here. I don't want you filming it and telling me what to do all the time.
yeah,
Which is it's interesting that they left that in because that points to so much construction. That points to this is a performance almost, but
it
it's being
also
an
points.
exhibition.
What I really like about that is because that sort of turns a mirror to the audience, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
And I thought after that point, it makes it very believable in a way, because even though they are oh, this is a construction, this is just a project here, but this is my life. You
exactly,
then
yeah.
are left with this sense of, oh, this is his life we're watching. This is real life. This is what actually happened. And I think,
Yeah, we're monsters for watching this. How dare we drive entertainment?
but you are. It feels very real, and he has very real emotions about it.
Yeah. And it's really tough, especially there's that bit where he reads out his sort of sexting he has with the woman.
Yeah.
And reads it on camera. And that's quite a personal thing to get into. There's a lot of sensitive stuff in his messages.
Yeah, and it's very personal, isn't it? And
Yeah.
he's very forthcoming with it.
Yeah.
So is there anything you didn't buy?
I don't know. I believe most of it. I did think there's something I don't know, there's something off about the farm they go to where the mail's being routed to. And obviously
Yeah.
I know oh yeah, she's chosen a random address, so it's not the same address as the one she's using because it's someone else. I get that. But
Yeah.
why that farm? And I don't know, because I mean that is a very creepy scene when they sort of like they dry up to it in the night, and there's a sort of I was
Yeah.
almost thinking something was going to happen there, and it's probably something innocuous, but something about the way it's presented makes me think there's like there's more to be dug out of that. Maybe I don't know,
Yeah.
but I did find not that it was predictable as such, but I did like I worked out relatively like so the moment they sort of went over there and found the woman in the house, like, oh, it's just her, she's doing it. Like,
Yeah.
I almost immediately figured out it's just her.
I think you're not supposed to not know that, you know.
Yeah,
I think it's immediately obvious that it is her.
yeah. I did think. I thought, she has the handicapped sons.
Yeah.
See, I originally thought it was going to be they're doing all the artwork, but she didn't, because of like prejudice towards people with handicaps. She was like marketing is being done by Abby
Yeah.
instead. That's the direction I thought it was going to go in, and then didn't, which I was surprised by that.
So what was really sad about it, I thought, was just like she's obviously just very sad in her life, and she's stuck in this rut, and her only form of escapism is catfishing people. You know,
Yeah, to
pretending
pretend
to
she's
be
someone.
yeah. And I thought just her life is so sad. Like she wants to be this other person entirely.
Yeah,
And
she wants to be a sort of young and sort of sexy person who can like go out and make these friends with people so easily. When she's not,
she's got these two disabled sons who she has to like keep medicating, or they hurt themselves all the time. It's just sad. Like I didn't feel angry at her. I just pitied her.
I agree with that. Yeah, and like
It's not like obviously it's not. She shouldn't have done it, but it's not like a terrible. What I'm trying to say is, she obviously shouldn't have done it, but she didn't do it out of malice. I don't think.
Yeah.
She did it just out of escapism and because she didn't know what else to do.
And what I like about it is the whole sort of like last act of the film is so sensitive in that they deliberately say like we're not going to just go and confront her like an expose like a Michael Moore. I just want, or you can have a gentle like honest conversation with her and just work it out. And I love that final scene where she's painting Nev and they're just chatting about it all.
Yeah,
I think that's a really sensitive sort of touching moment. And there's that wide shot. So he's like, oh, can you talk to me as her? I've forgotten what the girl's name was.
Is it Megan?
Yeah, Megan. It's like, can you talk to me as Megan? There's this great moment. She just like stares at him and like tries to get into character, and and he sort of hears her voice again. And it's just this little wide shot that holds them and this silence of them staring at each other. And it's like, that's such a powerful little moment of cinema. Like that, basically no words, just with a look. There's so much that's sort of, presented there.
Yeah.
That was like a really like, so that whole third act I thought was really well done. And I like that he still stayed friends with her.
Yeah, I think he was a really nice man, isn't he?
Yeah.
Neve.
Oh, sorry, Neve.
Yeah.
See, when I see Nev, I normally...
It's Nev, isn't it?
It's Nev, yeah.
Yeah. I think it's Neve because he's Greek or something, isn't he?
Yeah, he was...
And it's short for something else.
Yeah.
So have you ever seen the Catfish TV show?
I have seen bits of it. So I was saying a couple of weeks ago, whenever we go on holiday and me and my sister are in the same room, we end up watching Catfish because especially in like Spanish-speaking countries, it seems to be one of the only things that's on in English.
Yeah, when I went to Portugal, it's the only thing that was on.
Yeah, exactly. I think we were in Portugal as well. So I've watched some like random episodes just while I've been on holiday before, and that's much more like the expose kind of like. Almost like a true crime documentary in the sense of like, we found this woman, she's doing this online, we're at her house right now, we've got the camera on, it's you, and then it's all a lot more confrontational, or this is a lot more of a sensitive piece,
definitely it's a lot more confrontational, and I think they lose the personal touch. So obviously he's trying to help people, so in Catfish, I think we didn't really explain, but he gets catfished by this woman who pretends to be about 16 different people, is it? Or something like that?
Yeah, she sort of has this whole network of made-up characters she acts as in order to create this fake world of people.
Yeah, and she was acting as a whole family, including Megan, who Neve, falls for and they're talking and have like this long distance relationship and whatever.
Yeah.
So then in the TV show, he goes around America. People tell him like, "Oh, I think I'm being catfished," or someone says, "Oh, I think my mate's being catfished," or whatever. Can you go and help them? And he's like, "Yeah, sure." And so he goes around America helping these people who think they've been catfished, and it's sort of the series is okay, I think, but it definitely loses that personal touch.
Yeah.
Because it's not about him, or he's not directly involved. It is a lot more expository, and it is a lot more confrontational. Like he's just like, "Oh, let's go and sort this shit out." Whereas in his own, he's like very gentle and very sort of kind and pitying, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean and again because it's his life and his relationship, so he brings that sort of that sensitivity to it and that sort of tenderness. Well, I think with the series, there's a lot more distance to it and a lot more sort of coldness.
So, would you recommend it?
Yeah, absolutely. I thought it was a really good watch. It's like 80 minutes, so
it's not long.
It's short and sweet.
Yeah.
So it's surprisingly heartwarming as well.
It is heartwarming, although I really like at the end. So when they go to the woman's house, it's like very clear that Megan isn't real. Abby is real, but Megan isn't real. And this woman made her up, and she was playing all these characters. And he's like, "Oh, can I speak to Megan? Can I meet Megan?" And she's like, "No, Megan's in rehab."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, okay." And then she tells the truth about everything else, or almost everything else. And then right at the end, you've got this screen and some text comes over, and it's like, "We double checked with the rehab center that she says Megan was in. Megan does not exist." It's like, so that woman still lied to him just every single step of the way.
Yeah.
And it does make you wonder, like, what else was she actually lying about?
Yeah. That is a really good point actually. That even with what seems to be this whole honest confession, we still can't trust the nature of it, and that is documentary making.
Also, you have this. It's such a it feels very like a complete story, and then you just have that one bit at the end that's like,
that one little loose thread, which if you keep pulling, it just all keeps going. Yeah.
I really liked Catfish. I was think it's good, but also it's very different from other sort of documentaries.
Yeah,
because it's got this very homemade feel, and I think that wouldn't, especially back then, that wouldn't have been out of place if you saw that on YouTube.
Yeah, it does feel almost like an extended YouTube video in a way. I think it's quite inspiring as well because I think documentary is a genre where you can get, more leverage on this. But the idea that, anyone can make a film, technology isn't an obstacle. If you've got a story to follow, make it on a phone and it can work still. And I like that. It was kind of inspirational seeing such a low tech sort of basically no budget documentary being made and still being this really tender, genuine film.
You should watch 5 Cameras.
I shall.
Because that's another list. Well, I mean, it's got nothing to do with Catfish, but that's another sort of very so that's just about a Palestinian man who has had 5 cameras throughout his life, and it's about how each one of them broke, and dealing with invasion and war and police brutality, which is nothing to do with Catfish really, but it's got that very
that's not sweet and sensitive.
No, but it's got that very homemade vibe, like he's just got these cameras from 2005 or whatever.
It's like For Sama was quite similar as well. That's just all on a Canon DSLR. But it feels so homemade and so genuine and authentic, and that's a really good documentary.
I think that homemade feel does make it a lot more believable because that a studio hasn't got involved. If you know what I mean, it's a lot easier to believe because there's so much less budget manipulation.
Yeah. It is someone's literally just grabbed the nearest camera and just started recording what's happening rather than it suggests the idea that there's no setup in terms of which of course there probably still is.
But it was made on a budget of $30,000, which is nothing, is it? It's a micro budget.
Yeah.
And I mean, most of that was probably travel, wasn't it? Expenses.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if does the plane over to thingy count in that
Yeah.
budget? Presumably.
And like they obviously didn't buy. They already had the cameras because I think the two guys that made it. So it was Neve's brother and his mate, and I think they were both film students, weren't they?
Yeah, well, because Neve was a photographer, wasn't he?
Neve was a photographer, yeah.
So he certainly has like sort of camera equipment to hand.
And I think these two friends, like so Neve's brother and whatever his mate was called, they were like, this was a university project or something, or you know, some sort of.
I mean, he had access to a lav mic, so they must have had some kind of.
But I think it really lends itself to the truth. I believed everything about it. Like there was no point I was like, oh, that's obviously bullshit. You know.
No.
There was a couple of things where I thought this was set up, like we said earlier.
I think that there's definitely things that wouldn't have happened naturally and have been forced to happen for the camera.
Yeah, like you know when they do the whole thing about they find the music and that's how they first cotton onto it.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, I'm a musician, this is my music. And then they find exactly the same music by someone else.
Yeah, that seems like a really strange thing to do if you're trying to keep up to your... That's a very easy thing to fact check, isn't it?
Yeah, but also like that felt staged because why would you double check that? You know, why would you just, you know, someone sends you a song, you're like, oh, that's nice, you know. If you sent me a song being like, oh, I made this myself, I wouldn't then go out and be like... Is he bullshitting me, you know?
Well, true, but Andy, if I said, Andy, I've written and recorded this song and I'm performing on it, what do you think? And you listen to it and it sounds good. Would you not then immediately question how I sing well? How I've written a good song?
But
how I've studio produced it?
If there was no doubt that you were a musician, you know, if you were like, if you were... So Ed, our friend Ed, who is a musician... Yeah. If he sent me a song being like, oh, I made this song, I just wouldn't question it, you know? I'd be like, oh yeah, that's definitely you, that's fine. So I think it is probably, I reckon the directors were like egging him on, like, oh, you should double check that, you know, you should do something about this, make sure it's real. Something, you know, like there was obviously some manipulation there.
What did strike me about that actually is like, because they have she sends lots of songs which are by different artists, the covers. I think, and it's like, and I get they're also like similar kind of ranged female voices kind of thing. But like even that, like...
Well, wasn't it supposed to be like, oh, this one was by me, this one was by my mum? Something like that, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, maybe. But I think the point was she was still supposed to be in all of them in some degree.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know, I find that, I don't know, questionable. Like surely you'd be like, these voices sound different.
Yeah. And then what's really sad is like how... intensely he falls for her, and how, you know, it's just not true, and it's like you feel like you really feel for him because he's missed out because this woman's just been lying to him.
And that's what ending's so powerful. It's just like this sort of the graveness, you know, this woman he fell in love with who's just doesn't exist. She might as well have died, you know.
But that bit with the music, when it's like the bit earlier when she first sends him a song and he's like, you see him walking around his like art studio, like singing the song, and he's like really loving it. It's like, oh, she's really good singing, you know. I think she might be the one for me or whatever. And then later you see him just being like, that's not her. This is what's going on. Why would she do this to me? You know.
Yeah.
It's I thought it was good. Do you think it's good?
Yeah, I thought it was a really good film.
I recommend.
Absolutely.
How does it hold up on the truth meter?
The truth meter.
Yeah.
What's the range of the truth meter? What are we scaling it as?
So as I don't know, what's inherently, I mean, nothing is inherently 100% truthful.
Yeah, well, you can't spring these mechanics on me without
So, well, what is, so far out of the documentaries we've talked about, what do you think has been the most truthful one? So out of this, I'm Not Your Negro, and Touching the Void.
I'd say I'm Not Your Negro is probably the most truthful, because that seems the most, it's like I said, it's like almost just like a Wikipedia thing being read out.
Yeah.
Like it's even even if the stuff that's being read out is still a subjective account, it's still just a straight reading of those sort of writings and interviews.
Yeah.
I think out of the three, Catfish is definitely the most embellished one. I think it's the one with the most room for things to have been manipulated.
Which is interesting you say that, considering Touching the Void was reconstruction.
But that's like, because Touching the Void has there are only two perspectives on this,
Yeah.
and they we're hearing them, we're hearing both of them. So I don't know. I think that, I mean, again, there will be things that have been embellished a bit. But I think there's most of Touching the Void is as it happened, because you get so much detail from the people where it happened to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot more players in Catfish for one thing. Who knows what some other minor character might know. But we never hear from say Vince. I mean, we hear a bit from Vince, but there might be a whole perspective from him that could add a whole new angle to this that we don't even know. It could have been recorded and cut. We definitely have an interview with him. Who knows what else he said in that interview, for example.
Yeah. Okay. So
if you want a truth ranking, it's I Am Not Your Negro, Touching the Void, Catfish, I guess.
Catfish is the least truthful, but
again, I think they're all pretty reasonably reliable.
Pretty good. And what about Tiger King then?
Tiger King I think is the most manipulated of all of them. If we're counting that
100%.
Yeah, and again, there's so many players in it.
Should we have the League of Truthfulness?
Yeah, the League of Truthfulness.
Yeah.
A little ranked table of how.
Yeah, we'll have a ranked table. I like that actually.
Okay.
The League of Truthfulness. Sure.